In the previous videos, we talked about the strategies of balancing and bandwagoning in international relations. And now we are going to talk about the third strategic choice, known as hedging. So hedging lies in the middle between balancing and bandwagoning. And the term hedging is borrowed from finance and economics. So you might have already heard the phrase, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket." So hedging basically takes this phrase and applies it to international relations, referring to diversifying one's connections and not putting all your eggs in one basket. So hedging is a way of dealing with uncertainty, and it does this by taking opposing actions to minimize the risks of one or the other action. So basically you make one action, and in order to minimize the risks of that action, you also take an opposing action. So this term is like a gambler making multiple bets to avoid the risks of completely losing everything. There are two approaches to hedging in international relations. The first one is to minimize risks while preparing for the worst. And the second one is for maximizing benefits in a favorable situation. So a common pattern of hedging can be military balancing against another country, while at the same time bandwagoning economically with that country. This pattern is being seen in many countries, especially in countries in the Asia Pacific, and this is due to the rise of China and its effect on the conditions of the balance of power in the region, where some countries try to obtain the greatest benefits by choosing to depend on the United States for security reasons, while at the same time they increase their dependence on China for economic benefits. However, many of these countries don't openly use this term and say that they are hedging, because countries try to avoid associating or identifying themselves with this term. And the reason is because great powers, they don't like it. They disapprove of this behavior. So when great powers compete against each other, they want to know if the other countries are on their side or against them. Are those countries on the same page with the great power or not? So those smaller power countries will deny that they are hedging. You will not hear anyone use this word. So many government officials dismiss hedging as being speculative or unrealistic. Instead, they describe their policies as being non-aligned or neutral. So hedging is a strategy that is implemented without pronouncing it. So people do this, but they never say they're doing it. And in order for an action to be considered a hedging strategy, it has to have three elements. So the first one is not taking any sides among the competing powers. The second one is adopting opposite and counteracting measures. And the third one is using those counteracting acts in order to preserve gains and also to create a fallback position. Basically, a position where you can fall back in case things go wrong. And the intended purposes for hedging are, number one, to develop robust relations with both competing great powers. The second one is to cultivate maximum protection. And this is done in order to offset the multiple risks under the conditions of uncertainty. So basically preparing for the worst case scenarios. And the third one is keeping all options open for as long as possible. So some of the Asia Pacific countries don't want to be forced to choose between the US or China. They want to cultivate good relations with both. And this is related to the policy aim of keeping a fallback position when situations are uncertain and the stakes are high. So both great powers, the US and China, are sources of support for these smaller power countries to achieve their regional and their national prosperity, their stability and security. However, both great powers are also sources of uncertainty in their own ways. And this is due to concerns about the US credibility to those countries. Will the US really come and save you in case of conflict? As well as China's future intentions. Will China have benign or malign intentions in the future? So both of these issues related to the US and China are unable to be predicted. So for those smaller power countries, neither the US nor China is a one-size-fits-all solution. And this is because no state is certain of which power will prevail in the future. Nobody knows whether the current big power competition will evolve into détente, basically a relaxation of the strained relations, or will they escalate the conflict even further? So this basically pushes those smaller states to deepen their hedging strategy. So hedging allows those countries to minimize the risks and also to maximize returns by increasing their ties with both great powers instead of choosing one over the other one. So this also enables the people governing those smaller powers to concentrate on their domestic policy without speculating over which great power will be the more dominant power in the future. So that's the concept of hedging in international relations. And if you're unsure what balancing or bandwagoning means, or some of the other terms, feel free to check out some of my other videos where I talk about them. So that's it for this one, and thanks for watching.